What's up, guys? It's Harry Haas here, and today I'm just going to be going over kind of like a couple topics. One is going to be pre-market longs. Um, there's going to be some other recaps, just some lessons. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So I wanted to start this off by saying with COVID, with all these other kind of external factors, it's really important that you take some time for yourself and it might be a day, 2 days, 3 days, and make sure that you take a bit of a break, right? There's this kind of mentality all the time where it's like grind, 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 always keep working, never stop, always keep grinding. And to a certain extent, I do agree with that, right? Putting in the work necessary to succeed is super, super, super helpful. Working is essentially how you make it in this game, right? But trading can be very, very toxic. And I remember I texted Alex I believe it was maybe 6 months ago, and I'm like, oh bro, I'm just so burnt out. I just need a break. I don't know what's wrong with me. And he's like, bro, trading can be toxic. And I've never really heard that trade or that term, sorry, used towards trading before, like, oh, trading's toxic. Like, you never will hop on Twitter and ever hear anyone saying that trading's toxic, right? And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, you know what, he's right. It is a toxic game. You're never going to be up enough. You're never going to be doing as well as you think you could be doing. There's always somewhere that you can improve in. Maybe you left a little bit too early and left some gains on the table. Maybe you didn't stop out right. There's all these other things. But anyway, the point of the story is that after weekend mentoring this weekend, I just went on a little road trip with and I went to see kind of a friend of mine, and I just went to her house, and it was really, really nice that I could just kind of get away from the screens. I wasn't really in Slack. I took my phone. I didn't take a computer. I didn't take an iPad. I didn't take any of that. And, I just talked about other things for a while. Um, and, just getting that little refresh. When I came back and I was kind of ready to take on the week, I just I don't know. I felt so refreshed. I felt so good. I felt that that break had just kind of motivated me to do so much better, and it just kind of took me out of that kind of toxic spell or toxic circle where you know I had just been kind of almost in a rut, and not a bad rut. You're going in every day. You're making money. The afternoons, I'll find something to do, or maybe I'll just watch some TV or get on some calls or do some DMs or something like that. There's always something for me to do, but for the most part, it's always going to be trading related, or it's going to involve something, or you're on Twitter or you're on social media and you're always getting bombarded. So I just want to say that, if you are struggling in this market, and you do feel like you're not doing enough, that wasn't necessarily the reason for my break. The reason for my break was just because I was starting to get a little tired and burn out, and I knew I needed a refresher. But maybe you don't feel like you're doing as well. Maybe you feel that everyone else you see is kind of banking around you, and you kind of maybe maybe you're losing a little bit. Maybe you're only kind of bringing out smaller gains. So I think it's really important that you just take into account how you're doing. Take into account your own P&L, your own stuff that's going on around you. And again, trading is like MIC is really like a university where when you're in university, after my exams, you would always get a turnaround week, or even before exams you get a reading week, and and they give you kind of a week. I guess it's more so to study, but no one really studies. Everyone takes it off, and then maybe the last couple days they study, and then you have that kind of week, and then you get into exams. And for me, just kind of taking that week off and going to have a beer with my friends or going to do something like that, I was able to come back so refreshed, so motivated, ready to kind of attack, and that would always set me up for success. So it's the same thing in trading. Just remember that taking a break sometimes can be okay, because some of my biggest breakthroughs personally have came after I took a break. And I just said, listen, like I'm a firm believer that you should take a walk every day. You should kind of exercise every day. You should do something away from the screens every single day, just so your brain can kind of process that information and knowledge that you've learned, right? So I do think it's really, really important that you do kind of just take that into account. Like, take how you're feeling, because maybe right now, like, you feel completely fine and you don't feel burnout at all, and that's completely well and good. But at some point in this year in 2021, I can guarantee you that you will feel burnt out. You will kind of feel that that fuse that had been there is kind of reaching the end of its limit, right? And so it's important to recognize that and take a break and just understand that 2 or 3 days off from the market won't kill you. So that's just all I wanted to say. Some of my biggest breakthroughs have been after those kind of breaks. So I just wanted to kind of say that, I came back. I felt so good. I felt so refreshed, right? So, and so just really just kind of take that into account and remember that. Anyway, I also wanted to talk about this too, because I've talked about this in a lot of my other videos, and now more than ever, I find this is very, very, very important. So, one thing is taking your emotional temperature before the open. So, if you're a long trader in this market, a lot of the opportunity has been coming in pre-market. A lot of that opportunity, you've been able to get a good long pre-market, and by the time we open up, we're almost too overextended to even want to long it, right? So, and maybe you're a long trader and you don't like trading pre-market, and that's okay too. But you need to understand how you're feeling, right? Maybe you're a short trader and you watch this stock go from 3 to 2, or you're a long trader and you watch this stock go from 2 to 3, right? So you need to kind of measure, like, do I have FOMO right now? And again, like, how was your pre-market? Did you trade pre-market? Was pre-market something that you were involved in? Did you take a loss? Like, so you have to kind of measure if you are going to trade pre-market. Like, I think that you should probably trade smaller size, but also you should really take into account, like, how was that pre-market? Was it good? Did you take a loss? Are you looking to get that back after the open? And so always just take that into account. I just always want to put this in there, like, who's trapped, right? Because sometimes we're gonna be in a scenario where we have Bound Alex and even myself, James, Tom say, okay, we think the top is set now, right? And if you're a long trader in that scenario and you've just missed maybe a run up from 8 to 14, and now the top is back and set at 12, right? You're gonna have massive FOMO, and you're gonna be like, oh well, I can long this for a quick scalp at the open. I can long this, right? That's just out of FOMO, right? And so you don't want to just purely be going long a ticker out of FOMO. That's just not going to work, right? So maybe recognize that and just take that ticker off your screen and say, okay, maybe that's not one that I want to touch, right? External market factors, that's a big one, right? That should really be issue, like, not really market factors. That should really be issue. Where, I mean, like, did you get in a fight with your girlfriend? Maybe you're feeling a little burnout that I just talked about. Maybe you're not feeling well, right? Maybe you have a headache. Maybe you overslept. There's all these things that come into play, right? So you always want to remember, okay, like, is there something external going on here that could affect my trading? And that is a really, really big thing. I always kind of say to myself, like, if there is something kind of external, maybe that is like a reason to size down, right? Another one that has been happening a lot to a lot of people is, like, are you having tech issues, right? We're getting all this massive volume, these platforms are freezing, everyone's freezing, everything's going on, right? All of those things can just heighten your emotions, like, way, way, way more. So if you are kind of feeling that, like, maybe you're experiencing a tech issue, or even me, like, I've had days where my Wi-Fi's gone down, my platform is frozen, maybe, like, my computer wanted to do a Windows update, just, like, I've had the trifecta of terrible technical issues before in a day, and it's really, really frustrating, because once you get everything working again, you're like, oh, well, now I can trade, right? And that's usually out of FOMO, and you're like, oh, but I missed this ticker, oh, but I missed that. So you got to say to yourself, okay, maybe this is not a day that I should be trading. As much as I want to trade, maybe this isn't a day. Do you feel like you're up a lot pre-market? This is a big thing. We have seen a lot of people go up a lot of money pre-market and just get greedy and want to and just give it back and give it back and give it back after the open. So if you feel like you're up a lot, maybe that's time to size down and say, okay, like, do I want to part with any of those gains? And if you don't even want to part with a cent of those gains, do not put them at risk. Do not put them at risk or size way the hell down, because if the loss does come, that can cause a domino and a snowball effect where you're like, oh, but I can make this. Oh, but I can make this back. Oh, but I can make this back, right? So if you are and you're saying, wow, I'm up a lot. Wow, I'm up a lot. That's probably the time to say, okay, maybe I should walk away. If you feel like you're down a lot, um, that's also a problem too, because you're thinking after the open, I can size in big and make this all back. No problem, right? Also a problem there. Do not do that. It's better just to take the red day, to take the loss, than to keep going. And again, you should never feel like you're down a lot pre-market, because I feel like pre-market is a time that, you shouldn't really be sized in big, too big. Like, definitely if you're newer or you don't have a lot of experience pre-market, like, that's not a time to size in big, right? So if you feel like you're down a lot pre-market, like, you shouldn't really be in that situation. Or maybe if you are, like, maybe set like maybe a pre-market max loss and say, I don't want to lose more than this pre-market because I know I'll be emotional. Just little stuff like that can help you. Like, do you have FOMO, like I talked about earlier? That's a big one. And did you not get enough size on your trade? This is a problem, especially in this market where you go smaller size pre-market and you see something rip, like, you know, maybe you're up like $1 or two and you're like, I should be up more. I should have gotten paid more for that trade. I should have gotten paid more for that, right? And then you keep trying to hit that daily goal or whatever thing you've manifested in your head. So always keep that into account as well. Like, did I not get enough size on that trade? Do I want to still be making more, right? Again, that's not a good way to think either, right? These are just some quotes throughout the week. Number one is like, when a stock is whippy to one side or the other, it's usually because the stock is either short or long crowded. That's something that I've been noticing on a lot of these hard to borrow stocks, is that everyone's like, oh, well, I can't go short the stock, so maybe it's a long today. And so we'll get these pops and immediately they'll just wick right down, and we'll get another pop and it'll wick right down, and we'll get another pop and it'll wick right down. And I don't really love those ones because I know that we have our natural sellers involved. But when we are kind of short crowded on a stock, one thing that I've been noticing a lot lately is that we'll dip and immediately we'll get bought back up. We'll dip and we'll immediately get bought back up. So you can kind of use that as well as kind of like an indicator to who you think is trapped, or what side is crowded, stuff like that. Um yeah. Like, and this is just another example of kind of like the greed. Like, I already got the entire range on SNDL this day and on CLSN, so why am I going to be greedy, right? Why am I going to keep going back to the well and keep being greedy, right? And I understand in a lot of these scenarios, there's a lot of times where people are saying, okay, well, on my good days I want to be pushing really, 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 really hard, but if you're already up and you already feel like, you made enough for the day, and you don't really want to give any of that money back, then you really shouldn't be, right? And that's something that, you just always want to be aware of as well. And another thing is that you want to be longing things that everyone is kind of excited about. And the moment it dumps, whether you sold or not, you got to get out. And this goes back again to that kind of psychological hot chick volume. Everyone's paying attention. Everyone loves it. Everyone wants to be in that stock. Something that you also want to be paying attention to as well. And again, this is like kind of going back to this one as well. Oh, fuck, my phone's ringing. Okay, I'm just not going to do anything about it. Again, like, for me as a long trader, if I feel like I've missed something, I avoid it. Like, for instance, okay, this phone is just going to take like 5 minutes, or not 5 minutes, like 5 seconds. Someone will answer it eventually. For me as a long, like if I feel like I've missed something, I wanna avoid it, right? And 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 that's just something that I want to do. Like, I don't want to be trading a stock purely based out of FOMO, right? You know, um, in this case, we kind of had two competing with each other. Where CLSN, I was trading it and then I kind of sold out of it, and then RCMT kind of popped up, but it was way too overextended already. So I didn't want to just go long RCMT because it was up and I had missed that move and it was going to be out of FOMO, and because I was paying attention to another one and I was already in another one, right? You take some time between trades. Number one, like if you've made a really good trade, like there's also no reason to go back to the well, and we talked about this in weekend mentoring. But you know, I'm not gonna just hop from one to another just because another one's up, right? You got to have a plan on it. You got to draw your lines. You need to be kind of like content with what's going on, right? Another thing to do is that the best thing to do in this market, if you feel like you missed a ticker, is just not to trade it. Um, and this kind of comes back to this also, like RCMT, CLSN kind of route, where if you feel like you've missed something, like it is just so much better to not be the guy trying to go long on the backside and not to be the person trying to fight maybe the front side, or fight or whatever, right? It's so easy to get trapped in this market where we see a stock tank maybe, and already it's at the bottom of its range and you're trying to short everything at the very bottom of the range, right? Like if you miss it, like you just miss and you have to accept that and you have to move on. Like it's a tough market where we're getting moves crazy in one direction, crazy in another direction, and that's just it. And if you're not a part of that and you miss it, you could even walk away for 10 minutes and you could miss the entire move. Then all of a sudden you're the guy who's trying to fight it short or fight it long. And that's just the harsh reality of this market. We're getting irrational moves in one direction and irrational moves in another, and you either get it or you don't, in my opinion. Oh, also, Austin commented defensive trading, and I just wanted to include that because that's exactly what it is. If I had to wrote defensive trading, like that, I just wanted to include that because, like, dope comment, I like that comment. Anyway, I'm just gonna get into some trades now. These are obviously from a little bit ago, but I haven't made a video in like a week or so. And again, it comes back to like being, just kind of starting to get tired. Like this market can wear you down and tear you down. So you got to be taking, care of yourself and your mental health properly. So this one immediately, I kind of recognized that shorts were kind of fighting this and shorts were kind of trapped. So I took some here. I just sold into the pop. I ended up missing this entire move, and I just had massive FOMO. But I said, you know what? I'm not going to be the guy who is getting massive FOMO. I noticed that kind of like after this stuff move, it wasn't really breaking down properly. So I took some here, sold into this pop, ended up stuffing again. And then I was like, oh, I'll leave it. And then it started grinding and grinding and grinding. And I knew that shorts were going to be trapped in this area. So I took some here, sold up in a 14, left it alone after that. This was also the day, I believe, the day after the Super Bowl. And I was kind of up pretty late that night. So, I mean, I was happy to just kind of like scratch out these gains on it, and I just kind of left it alone after that. But that was kind of my thesis on that. Like we got this stuff move, and then immediately, like I talk about in some of my other videos, like couldn't break down, couldn't break down, couldn't break down. We got this one, like this should have kind of died, but it keeps going, keeps going, keeps going. So that tells me that there's probably some shorts involved in this one. CHCI, again, another one. We got this 10 o'clock volume. Everyone was buying it. If you were short this, you're forced to cover for the most part. I mean, unless you have a crazy average. I'm guessing most people probably got short underneath VWAP. So they were probably stuck or at least looking to cover. We got all these buying. Chat rooms ends up getting in. We have the Robinhood open here. So kind of took some for this range. In hindsight, probably should have sold, or should have kind of like, this was more so an on VWAP trade. I didn't really want to play off this level because I felt it was kind of like just too close, and I felt like VWAP was a good kind of in the middle kind of indicator, so I kind of just took some off VWAP. We ended up kind of going higher, sold it. That was kind of the idea on this one. Just very, very simple. I'm not trying to long here, trying to guess. Just let the volume come in, and was really my kind of play on this one. OCGN, I loved this trade. I sold too early on it, but I still loved it. And the reason why I loved it is because this entire day we were doing some massive volume all day. We started grinding. We started kind of getting back over VWAP for like the third time. I was like, okay, this has got to go. Took some here. We ended up kind of shooting up, forcing all these shorts to kind of cover. They cover, and that was kind of the play on it for me. I didn't want to be greedy on it. Again, I was selling up here in the 1340s. That's pretty good. Like, this is a pretty good kind of range play, range move, and I'm not going to complain on it, right? I just noticed that we were kind of trending upwards. I don't really use trend lines, but I loved how we were just trending upwards. I loved how it had kind of said to me that we had put like a bottom in here, and if you're still holding this short, you're just greedy and you deserve to get squeezed, right? Like, why? Like, let's say you get a great short up here and you're short from like 1380. Like, you should be covering this at 11, right? There's no reason. And so all these all day fader shorts are still fighting and fighting and fighting, and then we end up going way higher. OLB. Yeah, this is one where we kind of, I guess, like kind of stuffed, and then we ripped like right back immediately, and just kind of was just like hovering around here. So I just kind of took some here, and I said, okay, well, I can kind of risk this level, maybe a little bit underneath. Sold up into 14, got rid of it. I love the way it was trading, how thin it was, how low the float was. But this was another one that was kind of like a bit harder to borrow stock. So every time we would pop, we would get these crazy wicks back down. Every time we would pop, we get these crazy wicks. So it's not something that you want to fight. It's more so something that you just want to kind of, you know, I guess for me anyway, like I was being super, super cautious on it. It really didn't end up getting that much range anyway. I mean, later it kind of broke over VWAP, but other than that, I wasn't really a fan of it. CLSN. This is one again where, got 299 on it. I believe I kind of bought some here, and I bought a bit more here, maybe even a bit more here. I believe I was just kind of buying all the way up. And yeah, I believe I took a bit on VWAP. I added to it a little bit here, thinking that we could go a bit higher. Got 380s. Really can't complain on this one. This is another one that I just really kind of had confidence. I love the volume. I love the way it was trading. And, again, we have this VWAP kind of supporting here. We're starting to kind of dip. We're starting to kind of hold those gains. We're kind of moving a bit higher. The volume was insane on this one. Again, we're doing crazy volume. And to be honest, I just love the strength in this one early. And once we got that top in, immediately we just kind of went lower. I didn't participate in any of these moves. Like, I believe this was kind of like a chat room orchestrated kind of move. It ended up, I guess, working. Like, I don't even know what to say, but I guess they ended up bumping it back up here for the further fade. So yeah, I mean, not really a long down here in my opinion. We kind of broke all the support. We end up ripping back, but just not something that I wanted to play. I was really more interested in kind of like this range. I love the volume pre-market. I love the way it was trading. I was just really kind of in love with this ticker and just really wanted to kind of be into it kind of early. This one, ARTL again. This is a very, very similar setup. These two are very, very, very similar. So when I saw ARTL, I immediately was thinking back to my CLSN trade where we end up being able to kind of rip. Now again, like I only got this for 20 cents because like it was so wicky and so wicky and so wicky, and I didn't really want to get stopped out of it. But again, we end up kind of putting in this low, but then we started kind of like getting over VWAP and just kind of holding. So I took some, and we ended up kind of going higher. Again on ARTL, I took some again, kind of over this VWAP, sold into the pop. And I just didn't really want to be greedy on it. And I was just thinking to myself, like, okay, I just love the volume and the way both these tickers traded super, super, super similar to me, where we just started kind of just getting that volume and getting that kind of buying action and really kind of just being able to kind of hold the dips. I really liked it. I really liked it a lot. So thanks for watching, guys. I'm around anytime. I'm always down to answer DMs, and yeah, just really kind of hit me up anytime, and I'm always around. See ya.